What I mean to say is, I know that the reason I say this, Will and Don Liuzzi and several people who I've played for before, left hand's not doing this as much as doing, it's just kind of dry. Our left hand always does that when we're doing these sort of things.
Always seems to come a little bit early, the C that's in the 4/8, right before you start the.
Using like a just like a regular wood
Right.
mallet, and it's going to be a different sound than
Yeah.
the hard edge.
My name's Jeb Kulovich. Right now I'm studying at Boston University doing a performance diploma. I did my undergrad at Boston University. Then I went to right down the road to NEC for grad school. So I got my master's there. Then I stayed there for another year, studied with my teacher there, just taking lessons and practicing just for a year. And then now I'm back at BU for performance diploma.
Both of my parents were musicians. My father was director of bands at Auburn University for 37 years. So he did marching band and later on wind ensemble and taught arranging and wind literature and music theory and all of those things. My mother was a flautist, played flute professionally, and taught a private studio out of our home and played with the local orchestra and did various other gigs and teaching, that sort of thing. So music was always in my house, and I think I like to say I was doomed to be a musician.
You don't want to make just every time, like, you know, the same themes come up. You don't want to play them the same every time through the whole thing.
Right.
So, since this is kind of an interesting harmonic area, bring out this stuff.
My name is Tim Jennis, and I am the principal timpanist of the Boston Symphony. Well, I was always interested in music, but I got into percussion early after piano, when I was about 7 or 8. And seem to have sort of a knack for it. I tend to sort of gravitate towards things I'm naturally decent at. So I got into that, and I didn't start formally training until high school, until I think, I guess my freshman year. And did fairly well. I always seemed to have a reasonable amount of success with it. So. And that's really where my interest lied. My parents made me decide between piano and percussion when I was a sophomore. I remember specifically at the restaurant, them starting to talk to me about that and having to make a choice of, you know, and they were right because it was too much to do both, and I picked percussion. And from that point on, I just sort of, you know, put my head down and went full throttle. So.
I think when I was really young, my parents bought me a toy drum set for Christmas, and maybe a year or two later, I was probably 2 or 3, maybe a year or two later, I started taking drum set lessons, and I just sort of kind of stuck with it, not really knowing that I would end up like this. I mean, my parents both sort of wanted me to sort of have a well-rounded sort of upbringing, so doing sports and music, so I kind of just sort of stuck with it, and turned out I'd go to school for it.
I don't know if there was a moment or a trigger, per se, that made me decide to go into percussion. My father was a percussionist growing up before he later went on to specialize in teaching and band directing, that sort of thing. But I would always beat on things. There are baby pictures of me playing on my mom's pots and pans in the kitchen, and I would go stand out on top of my dad's truck in the driveway and beat on the top of the truck as if it was a giant drum. And I just grew up being drawn to the rhythm, I think, of percussion.
School was, I wouldn't say tough. I was very focused, I would have to say, in school. I remember being focused all through school and being very, very competitive. Almost in an unhealthy way. I mean, from the moment I got to Eastman, you know, it's. I can remember feeling that I wanted to be better than everybody else, and so I really worked hard.
probably spend, anyway, between maybe 5 or 8 hours a day practicing. Generally, just trying to practice as much as I can. I mean, obviously, you know, standing up for all that long, and you can get tired. So I'd say 8 hours a day, maybe a little more, is about the maximum I can do personally.
When I'm practicing for auditions, I pretty much practice as many hours in the day as I can. Everything else in my life is a distraction, to be honest. Whether it's class or eating or anything, it's all a waste of my time if I can't be in the practice room.
I probably practiced, I would say, at least 12 hours a day. I mean, I'd get up at 5:30, and I'd practice 4 or 5 hours right in the morning. I practiced every minute I could. And I quickly, you know, when you spend that much time thinking about percussion all day, you start to realize, or you start to figure out what it is you can make a niche in.